September 1066. England stands on the edge of destruction. 3 men claim 1 throne. 3 armies prepare for war. And within just a few weeks, the fate of England will be decided forever. But before the famous Battle of Hastings, before William the Conqueror crossed the English Channel, another battle shook the kingdom to its foundations. A battle between 2 of the greatest warriors of the age, King Harold Godwinson of England and the legendary Viking king, Harald Hardrada. This is the story of Stamford Bridge, the last great Viking invasion of England, and one of the most dramatic battles in medieval history. To understand how England arrived at this moment, we must begin at the start of 1066. In January, King Edward the Confessor died without an heir. His death plunged England into uncertainty. For years, Edward had ruled a relatively peaceful kingdom. But now, with no clear successor, ambitious men across Europe saw an opportunity. The English nobles moved quickly. They crowned Harold Godwinson king. Harold was powerful, experienced, and widely respected. He had spent years defending England and was arguably the strongest candidate available. But not everyone accepted his claim. Across the Channel, William, Duke of Normandy, insisted Edward had promised him the throne years earlier. And far to the north, another ruler believed the crown belonged to him. Harald Hardrada, King of Norway, the man history would remember as the last Viking. Hardrada was unlike any king of his age. His life seemed pulled from legend. As a young man, he fought in Scandinavian wars before traveling across Europe as a mercenary. He served in the elite Varangian Guard of the Byzantine Empire and fought battles from Sicily to the Holy Land. He survived rebellions, assassinations, naval battles, and political intrigue. He accumulated immense wealth, earned a fearsome reputation, and became one of the most experienced warriors in Europe. By 1066, Hardrada was 50 years old. Most men of the age were already dead, yet he remained ambitious. He believed destiny had one final prize waiting for him: the throne of England. His opportunity came through an unlikely ally, Tostig Godwinson, Harold's own brother. Only a few years earlier, Tostig had ruled Northumbria in northern England, but after political unrest, he was driven into exile. Bitter and humiliated, he blamed Harold for his downfall. Now, he wanted revenge. Together, Hardrada and Tostig assembled a massive invasion force. Hundreds of longships gathered along Norway's coastline. Thousands of warriors answered the call. Veterans, mercenaries, seasoned fighters who had spent their lives at war. When the fleet finally sailed across the North Sea, it carried one of the most powerful Viking armies England had faced in generations. The invasion landed in Yorkshire during September. Its advance was swift and brutal. Villages were raided, food and supplies were seized. Panic spread throughout northern England. Local resistance quickly formed. The Earls Edwin and Morcar gathered an army and marched to confront the invaders near York. The 2 forces met at Fulford. The battle was fierce, but the outcome was decisive. Hardrada's battle-hardened veterans overwhelmed the English defenders. The English army broke. The road to York lay open. Northern England suddenly appeared vulnerable. For Hardrada, everything was unfolding exactly as planned. Another kingdom seemed ready to fall before him. News of the invasion soon reached King Harold. He was in southern England preparing for William's expected invasion. Now he faced a nightmare. A powerful Viking army had landed in the north and defeated local forces. If he delayed, Hardrada could secure northern England and strengthen his position. Harold knew he had no time to lose. He gathered his army and began marching north. What followed became one of the most remarkable military marches in English history. Nearly 300 kilometers in just a few days. The pace was extraordinary. Day after day, the English army pushed forward, across rivers, through villages, along ancient Roman roads. Men marched from sunrise until darkness, then rose again and continued. The speed of the advance shocked everyone, including the Vikings. Hardrada believed Harold remained far to the south. He had no idea the English king was racing toward him. On September 25th, 1066, Hardrada assembled his army near Stamford Bridge, east of York. The atmosphere was relaxed. The city was expected to provide hostages as a sign of submission. Many Vikings left their heavy armor behind. The day was warm. A battle seemed unlikely. Victory appeared all but secured. Then scouts arrived. An army had been sighted. At first, few believed it. Harold could not possibly have arrived so quickly, but the reports kept coming. Soon there was no denying the truth. The King of England was here, and he was advancing fast. The Viking camp erupted into chaos. Warriors rushed for weapons. Messengers sprinted in every direction. Orders were shouted across the fields. Every minute suddenly mattered. The narrow crossing over the River Derwent became critical. If the Vikings could hold the bridge, they might gain enough time to form their battle lines. According to legend, one Viking warrior volunteered to defend it. His name has been lost to history, but his actions became immortal. Standing alone on the bridge with a massive axe, he faced the advancing English army. The first attacker charged. The Vikings struck him down, then another, and another. Again and again, English soldiers rushed forward. Again and again they fell. The bridge was too narrow for the English to use their numbers. For precious minutes, a single warrior delayed an entire army. The legend says that eventually, an English soldier drifted beneath the bridge and thrust a spear upward through the wooden planks. The blade struck the defender. Mortally wounded, the giant finally collapsed. The bridge was open. The English surged across. Now the battle truly began. Thousands of men collided in a storm of violence. Axes crashed against shields. Spears pierced flesh. Arrows darkened the sky. The noise was deafening. War cries mixed with screams and the clash of steel. The battlefield descended into chaos. At the center of it all stood Harald Hardrada. Just as he had done throughout his life, he fought in the front ranks, not behind his men, among them. The Norwegian king inspired his warriors through personal example. For a time, the Viking line held, despite being surprised, despite lacking armor, despite being outmaneuvered. The Norwegians fought with incredible determination. Then fate intervened. An arrow flew through the chaos. It struck Harald Hardrada in the throat. The king staggered. Blood poured from the wound. Moments later, he collapsed. The greatest Viking warrior of his generation was dead. Shock rippled through the Norwegian ranks. The man who had fought across continents. The man who had survived countless battles. The man who dreamed of becoming King of England now lay dead on an English field. But the battle was not over. Leadership passed to Harold Godwinson. Despite overwhelming odds, he refused to surrender. According to some accounts, Harold offered his brother mercy, land, forgiveness, a chance to live. Tostig refused. He would either win his honor back or die trying. The fighting continued. Soon, Viking reinforcements arrived from the fleet under the command of Eystein Ore. The men had raced to the battlefield at full speed. Exhausted before the fighting even began, they nevertheless launched a desperate counterattack. For a brief moment, the Vikings rallied. The battle hung in the balance, but exhaustion and casualties were taking their toll. The English continued pressing forward. Slowly, relentlessly, the Viking line began to buckle. Then it broke. What followed was slaughter. Warriors who had crossed the North Sea, seeking glory, now fought only to survive. Many never escaped. By the end of the day, The battlefield was covered with the dead. Harald Hardrada was gone. Harold Godwinson was gone. Thousands of Viking warriors lay scattered across the fields around Stamford Bridge. The invasion had been destroyed. The scale of the defeat was staggering. When Hardrada sailed to England, he brought hundreds of ships. When the survivors returned to Norway, only a fraction were needed. The rest stood empty. The dream of a Viking England had died forever. Many historians consider Stamford Bridge the end of the Viking Age. For over 2 centuries, Viking warriors had terrorized, explored, traded, and conquered across Europe. They had raided monasteries, founded kingdoms, crossed oceans, and carved their names into history. Now their age was ending, not with triumph, but with defeat. Harold Godwinson had achieved one of the greatest victories in English history. He had marched farther, moved faster, and defeated one of the most feared warriors Europe had ever produced. But victory came at a terrible cost. His army was exhausted. Thousands had fought and marched without rest. And even as the dead were being buried, another message arrived. William of Normandy had landed in southern England. The new invasion had begun. Harold would have little time to celebrate. The Battle of Stamford Bridge changed history. It destroyed the last great Viking invasion. It ended the ambitions of Harald Hardrada, and it marked the closing chapter of the Viking Age. Yet its greatest consequence came from what happened next. Because just 19 days later, Harold Godwinson would fight another battle. A battle remembered throughout the world, the Battle of Hastings. But on September 25th, 1066, beside a small bridge in Yorkshire, the Vikings made their final stand, and history turned. The end of an age, the beginning of another.